So in this recording, we are going to review basic anatomy of cardiovascular system. We will first look at the heart, at the systemic and pulmonary circulations, compare the structures of arteries and veins, and apply this knowledge to clinical situations where clots originating from different places affect different parts of the body. So here we have a heart, and the heart has left part and the right part. Left part serves to systemic circulation, and right heart serves to pulmonary circulation. Each of these two parts have atria where venous blood arrives, and it's stored until the tricuspid or bicuspid valves are opening, and then when they open, the blood moves into the ventricles, and from ventricles they are ejected into the big vessels, on the left side into the aorta, on the right side into pulmonary trunk and pulmonary arteries. Now, one thing to remember is that what comes to the heart are veins. So on the right side, we have vena cava superior and vena cava inferior. On the left side, we have pulmonary veins arriving to the left atrium and bringing oxygenated blood from the lungs. What comes out of the heart are arteries. So on the right side, we have pulmonary artery. On the left side, we have aorta. So we will first talk about the systemic circulation. The systemic circulation processes the blood that arrives from lungs through pulmonary veins to left atrium. And then the blood continues to left ventricle and it's ejected into the aorta and then to individual branches of aorta until it arrives to capillaries. So the primary function of this systemic circulation is to deliver oxygen from the left heart to the tissue, to the capillaries, and then pick from there the catabolic compounds like carbon dioxide and bring it back to the right heart through the big veins. So now we just said that the blood goes into arteries. After arteries, we have capillaries. So here we have still arteries, right? Big arteries. They are smaller and getting smaller, until you have the mesh of very tiny vessels that are arterioles and they become capillaries. On this picture here, you see a 200 magnification of a capillary, where you can see that these vessels have a very thin wall. They actually have only endothelium in the wall. They don't have any smooth muscle. And here you see the migrating red blood cells through the capillaries. Now, so the blood to capillaries is brought from arteries and then continues through the veins back to the heart. And at capillaries is happening the exchange of nutrients and gases. And there will be another recording that describes the Starling law on capillaries. So we don't have to spend time on this aspect here. So the blood from capillaries is then deoxygenated, so it's changing its color, and it's depicted usually in pictures as dark blue. And the blood is now bringing CO2 and some catabolites to through the veins, and to the blood from lower part of the body arrives through vena cava inferior. Blood from upper part of the body arrives through vena cava superior to the right atrium. And in the right atrium, so here we have the vena cava superior, inferior, and the right atrium. And from in the right atrium starts the pulmonary circulation. So the blood deoxygenated from the body is flowing from atrium to ventricle, and during systole, the blood is ejected to the pulmonary trunk and pulmonary arteries to the left and the right lung. In the lungs, the arteries are falling into small branches, as we have seen before on the picture of a hand. And finally, we have capillaries, and the capillaries again are now the thin-walled vessels with no smooth muscle in them. And that's where the exchange between exchange of gases happen. So oxygen goes into the blood becomes red, and CO2 is exhaled. So then the blood from capillaries continues through pulmonary veins into the left atrium, and that is where the systemic circulation starts. So here we see a picture of the pulmonary capillaries. You see the airways and alveoli, and the capillaries are surrounding closely the alveoli, and so that the distance between the air in alveoli where we have oxygen, the distance for the oxygen from the alveolus into the pulmonary capillary is very short. So now the blood is oxygenated. So now let's have a look at the differences between arteries and veins. So in arteries, we have much higher blood pressure, and the smooth muscle is much more developed, while in the veins, there is a much less smooth muscle. So this is one of differences between arteries and veins, but otherwise, all arteries and veins have similar structure. They have inside the endothelium, which is an inner lining of flat vessels, smooth on their surface. So this is inside each vessel. And then we have tunica intima, which involves the endothelium and some elastic fibers and connective tissue. Then we have tunica media, which is primarily involving the smooth muscle, and then tunica externa, which is a connective tissue surrounding the vessels. So different size of vessels have different proportions of individual components like elastic fibers or muscle. But the main point here is that all the vessels have tunica intima, media, and externa. The capillaries, as I said, are only single layered endothelial cells surrounded by connective tissue, but they don't have smooth muscle. So in this picture here, we see that the arteries are much sturdier, and we can see clearly the circular or oval shape of an artery, and collapsed shape of veins that are much thinner. The walls are much thinner. So the other difference between arteries and veins is that some veins have valves to prevent a backflow of blood, for example, in the legs. No valves are present in arteries. So now, with this quick review of anatomical structures, let's have a look at situation where there is formed a thrombus or a clot in the heart. This can happen, for example, if there are fulfilled conditions of so-called Virchow's triad, that the blood is maybe undergoing some stasis, or there's some damage, for example, after myocardial infarction, or the person's coagulation system is hyperactive. So the clot can be formed, and they can lead to pieces of platelets and fibrin, or this could be pieces of valves during inflammation, endocarditis. There could be some cramps of valves flowing. So if that happens, that clot is now flying into the aorta. And from here, it can go basically to any vessel, any artery in the body. It can go through aortic arch into carotid artery and into the brain and cause stroke. It can go to abdominal aorta and mesenteric arteries and occlude vessels, the arteries that are supplying gut. It can go to kidneys, anywhere simply in the legs. So what happens is that when the clot is flying through the circulation, it embolizes a vessel that is becoming smaller than the clot, and then the blood supply in the area behind that embolization is not working. There is no oxygen supply, no nutrient supply, and the tissue eventually dies. We also sometimes form clots in veins. Again, usually when the Virchow's thread is in the place, and some risk factors are happening. So, for example, long flights or long drives or hypercoagulable state may lead to formation of a thrombus. So deep venous thrombosis. Here you see the diagram, and here we see the valves in the veins. And then if this thrombus dislodges, it can fly now in the blood together with in the blood flow towards the heart. So there's nothing to stop the thrombus or the clot. It's because it's coming from smaller veins, and the veins, as we are approaching heart, are getting larger and larger. So there's always space for it. And then the blood is flowing to the right atrium, right ventricle, and from right ventricle into pulmonary artery. And the pulmonary artery is now branching, and the vessel, the arteries are becoming smaller in diameter. So eventually the clot is going to find a vessel where it cannot pass through anymore. So that will cause so-called pulmonary embolism. And you see here on this postmortem specimen of lungs that this occlusion has usually this wedge shape infarction of the tissue. Okay, so thank you, and we will talk in the other recording.